The Superfund Research Program has a community engagement core whose mandate is to create relationships between scientists and residents of communities where there are Superfund sites. It also emphasizes getting the science into the hands of other researchers and agencies who are charged with the responsibility of managing contaminated sites.
I am interested in studying how human health and the environment are both impacted by chemicals in our environment. And so I use a small coastal salt marsh fish called the mummy chug or Atlantic killifish to understand how a host of chemicals that are found, for example, in New Bedford Harbor impact metabolism in this fish. This research is also important to understand how human health is impacted by these chemicals.
Well, hopefully within the next 5 years there'll actually be done dredging. There may be other minor things that need to be done in the meantime. Like I said, one of the components is operation and maintenance. The state's going to have to then fulfill its obligation by doing the monitoring. As part of that, we're actually doing the fish monitoring now, and there's been actually great progress in certain species in the reduction in the contamination level, particularly in the harbor itself.
The city has made a lot of progress over the years, and in large part, that progress that the city's made has, I think Clean and Hands Across the River really deserve a lot of credit for that progress. They fought tooth and nail to make sure that human health was the #1 priority here in New Bedford, and we also know that the EPA never would have agreed to dig up and take the most contaminated sediments in the harbor to dispose of off-site, if it hadn't been for the work of Hands Across the River. And so we've, at Toxics Action, we've really seen the power that volunteer-led groups like these can bring to ensuring that human health is really front and center when it comes to communities' efforts to address problems like this.
We're hopeful that we can finish the majority of the work on this project in the next 5 years. That is a big milestone for the city, not only for environmental cleanup, but again, under navigational dredging. This means any area of the lower harbor that the state or city wants to deepen for economic development purposes, they can now do without having to consider that our material, EPA's material, which is the more contaminated material, is in the way.
There's approximately 5 CAD cells now between the state doing navigational dredging, which was over on the south side of the Route 6 bridge. And basically what they were trying to do is they were trying to do navigational dredging to increase the depths to allow bigger ships to come in, which had not been done in 30 years. We can understand that. So now with the 5 CAD cells that we have here, between the DEP and also the EPA, they've created a dump site. We don't want that. We don't want that near a residential area.
Definitely when it comes to the cleanup stuff, the EPA is running the show. But the city is definitely anxious to see more redevelopment on the waterfront, and they're looking forward to the time when the EPA gives up those sites that they're using because they want to redevelop them. I think there is buzz about New Bedford. I think that's years ago people used to kind of chuckle and wonder if the idea of New Bedford, coming back as a tourist destination was just kind of a marketing line. But I think now it's been in national magazines, it's gotten a lot of exposure, and we've had, a lot of changes around here, and it's like a real thing.
Personally, I grew up here in New Bedford, so I have a personal and a professional connection to the city. Growing up here, I lived just a few blocks away from the river, but it was not something that was a part of my life. It was basically, blocked off from the community. The Buzzards Bay Coalition is active in New Bedford public schools. We see every 4th and 5th grade class in the New Bedford public schools through the Sea Lab program. So we bring them down to the beach. We help them explore the water and the beach down in the south end of New Bedford, in outer New Bedford Harbor. And we teach them about shells and what lives in the water. And for many of them, it's their first connection to the water. Even though they live here in the city and they've grown up here their whole lives, they've never been to the beach. So we're helping bring this next generation of New Bedford residents to the water and helping them see their connection to the bay, which is something that I never had as a child. So it's a great improvement for the next generation.